Yo, what's good everyone? Welcome back to another video. And today I'm just going to be talking about my life experience so far, being in the Philippines and some of the pros and cons. For those who are considering moving here, whether that's short term, long term, it doesn't matter. Okay, so just a bit of background and talking about my experience so far living here. Obviously, this is where I was born and I was raised here until I was 7 years old. And then after that, I moved to the UK with parents. And then that's where I grew up majority of the time. So over a decade now. I've went to school there, moved around a lot. So I know the culture almost inside out in the UK. And then only until recently, back in March, did I fully make the move out solo. I went to Thailand first for 3 months, lived there, Koh Samui. You guys probably know that because it's on the YouTube channel, it's documented, and also documented on my Instagram. And then after Thailand, decided to head to the motherland. And it was only supposed to be, so here's the thing guys, I was only planning to be here for like a month or a couple weeks, right? Just to see family and whatnot, and maybe head back to Thailand. I was thinking, who knows, Chiang Mai, Bangkok, some other different place, right? Maybe even Samui again. But I was only planning to be here for a couple months or for like a couple weeks. But you know, there's something different about going back to your hometown, or not your hometown, but where you grew up, your heritage, your culture, whatever you want to call it. There's something about it that's just so magical, and you just feel right at home again, right? I don't know if you guys can relate. If you ever go back to the place that you grew up, where you were born, or where your ancestry is, you know, you feel very welcome there. Even if you've never been before, you feel very welcome. And there's a lot of things, there's a lot of beauty in that, and there's also a bit of cons. Nothing's ever perfect, so that's what I'm going to go through today in this video, right? The one thing I want to say as well is I think the Philippines deserves more love, right? If you were looking at other places like Thailand, like Vietnam, like Indonesia, Bali, for example, that's everyone and their mom's talking about going to Bali, right? I've never been. I have a friend who I lived with in Thailand who went to Bali. Actually, he had a great time. But I think the Philippines deserves more love. Like, it's definitely on the way up. If it's not already, it's definitely on the way up. It's on the rise. There's a lot of different things for different types of people. Whether you enjoy island life, you go to Palawan, you go to whatnot. I actually have only been to Boracay. That's the only place I've been to. That you call the island. So, and there's a ton of different islands. I think they said there's like 7,000 plus different islands in the Philippines. So there's no shortage of that. If that's what you're looking for, you head there, right? And when I do head there, I can give my own experience and I can make another video on that. But as of now, I've just been used to the city life. 2 months here so far. The first 3 weeks I was with my family back in the province. It's called Cavite City. So you guys can look that up. Very small, it's pretty small. Cavite is like a province, but then the city itself is, you know, it's pretty small. You know, there's not much going on there. It's more quiet. It's a great place to, you know, as I said, I connected with my family again. I haven't seen them in years. So I was staying there for 3 weeks. And then after that, I decided to make a move to, it's called Quezon City. It's in Manila, which is obviously the capital of Philippines. So I decided to make the move here to Quezon City. And then really the goal here right now is just to get my bearings, stack as much as possible, set myself up for the future, okay, before any other travel plans that will come soon, which you guys will probably hear about in the near future, okay? I'm very excited for it. But anyways, here's the pros and cons now. Let's dive into it. So the first pro is, as I said, you feel very welcome. The people, we'll say the people, right? Whether you're from here or not, the people are very accommodating, they're very nice. Some of the warmest, kindest people I've ever met. And yes, maybe there's bias, right? But it's true. Like, a lot of people who have come here just for vacation, for example, or maybe it's the first time, they always bring up the people. They always bring up how kind, how accommodating they are. They want to make sure you're okay. Have you eaten yet? All that good stuff. So they're gonna make sure you're okay. You're well taken care of. There's nothing to be suspicious about, right? So it's just the people, man. I can't explain it. Like, I've got relatives here, obviously, but even non-relatives, they feel like my family almost, right? So, and I'm hoping that when you come down here to Philippines, maybe it's your first time, maybe you've been multiple times before, if it's the same thing, it's the same experience, right? And I don't doubt that's gonna happen. So I'd say the first thing is the people. You're gonna feel very welcome here, etc. Okay. The second thing, we'll do a pro and a con, and we'll go back and forth. Okay. So the first pro is the people. The first con, I'd say, and it's gonna, again, depends if you're in a city, if you're an island, whatever. It depends on which part you're from. And I can give some recommendations at the end for people who are looking to move here. What are like the best things to do, best places to stay, right? First con is, unsurprisingly, the traffic. Obviously Manila is like up there in like the top 10, top 20 as like being most congested, worst traffic in the world, right? No surprise there. A place that should normally take 15 minutes to get to can even stretch out to 45 minutes just because of how bad the traffic is. And it's obviously going to depend on what time you travel, so be very mindful of that. But I think one of the reasons why the traffic is so bad here, and I'm just getting this from what I read, is obviously the population is very dense. There's a lot of people here. That's pretty obvious. But also it's just the road infrastructure is very outdated, and it's very slow to advance. Okay, so, and it's very hard anyway to advance because there's so many people here. You don't want to disrupt anything, right? So yeah, the traffic is not good. And time is very valuable, especially if you're trying to build something, right? So your time is of the essence, but the Philippines can make it very difficult sometimes to do that. Something that should take only 15 minutes elsewhere to get to can take 30, 45, sometimes even an hour if it gets really bad, right? So you need to be very mindful of where you're headed, what time you're going, and etc., right? So if you're getting a Grab, if you're getting a motorcycle, a bus, public transport, even train, because there's like a tram slash train infrastructure, which I've never actually taken yet, then you just got to be very mindful of that. Okay, traffic is no joke, and if you want to get from place to place, you want to dart around, then that's something you've got to be mindful about. Okay, so traffic is the first con. Second pro of the Philippines is, what would I say? This could be a pro and a con, I'd say. Okay, this is a pro and a con. Is the weather, right? The climate. Now, obviously, if you go in the wrong time, and I don't know exactly what the times are, but there's only 2 seasons here in the Philippines / Southeast Asia. There's only the dry season and the wet season. And the dry season, self-explanatory, hot, humid, lots of sun, which you can get here. So if you're more of a fan of a hot country, which I am, I'd take that any day, especially after living in the UK for so long. I'm just sick and tired of the cold weather, of all that stuff. Like I'd rather be sweating in as bad as it can get sometimes. I'd rather be sweating in 100-degree plus Fahrenheit weather or 30 plus degree Celsius weather over being shivering, freezing, and not being in a very good climate. So is the weather, right? Obviously, you're gonna get more of the benefits there if you're in the island, but it's sunny here right now. There's been some rain here and there, and when it rains, it does rain. It pours. Okay, so be very mindful of that too. But for the most part, weather, I'm a big fan of. That's I need to get my vitamin D, and yeah, that's the second pro, I guess you could say. And then you could count that as a con as well. If you don't like hot weather, then obviously this isn't the place for you, right? So if you're more of a cold weather fan, then go elsewhere, right? So that's the second thing, is pro / con is the weather, is the climate, etc. It can get very humid sometimes, so make sure you're dressing lightly. Obviously in the city, as it comes towards like evening, nighttime, it's much cooler, or very early in the morning, it's much cooler. You can wear your jeans, you can wear your trousers, you can wear your long sleeves, whatever. But just make sure you're dressing appropriately here, or else it's gonna bite you in the ass. Okay, just like how it has sometimes for me. Sometimes I'll step out of the condo, and then I'll be like, I've showered, I'm well dressed, I'm groomed, etc. And then only about 15-20 minutes in, I'm out, and I'm already starting to sweat. So take that as you will. Probably not a good thing, but I'd still take this over cold weather, cold, cloudy UK sometimes, which it can get like that. So I'll say the third pro of the Philippines, and I'd say the third pro. I'm just shooting off the cuff here, guys. I didn't really prepare, which I probably should have, but I'm not really preparing right now. So third pro is there's so much to do here. That's what I'd say. There's a lot to do here, guys. Just like you would in Bangkok, just like you would in Vietnam, just like you would in Indonesia, right? It doesn't matter. There's a lot to do here, right? If you're looking for nightlife, they got it here. If you're looking to lock down and really just grind and focus, they also got it here. Plenty of places on Airbnb, plenty of places you can look online if you're looking for a condo, apartment, such and such, a place to stay. Even if you want to just go to like the village, you can completely do that. It's up to you. It's your free will. You can do whatever you want, right? And there's no shortage of things to do here, right? So I've been enjoying the nightlife much more recently here. Safe to say it's up there. And then there's this, I'll give you 3 cities, so I'll just give you the recommendations off the bat. So I'm in Quezon City in Manila. So you got Quezon City, you got Makati, you got BGC, which stands for Bonifacio Global City. If you haven't looked that up, guys, already, I highly urge you look it up. It is so underrated. That's why I said in the beginning, Philippines deserves more love. There's just some places, some hidden gems, so underrated. So underrated. Like it rivals BGC. Look up BGC. It stands for Bonifacio Global City. It's kind of like Dubai in a way, where it's like it's only developed rapidly in the last few years, but the way it's developed, like you've got everything there. It rivals places like Bangkok. It rivals other big cities, even in Europe, even in other places in the world, not just Southeast Asia. Right? It rivals those. That's what I'm talking about, guys. There's so much to do. If you want to go shopping, you go shopping. People, there's this misconception that all of the Philippines is poor and it's impoverished, and there are pockets of that for sure. You see that around sometimes, and as you get to the more rural areas, you're gonna see that. I don't know if rural is the right word, but it's a misconception, right? You're gonna find it. Whatever you look for, you're gonna find. But if you're looking for somewhere that's more developed, more affluent, there's no shortage of that too. I was out in BGC last week. I saw Lamborghinis parked up. I saw G-Wagons, Aston Martins parked up on the side, right? So yeah, that's what it is, right? A lot of people, a lot of wealth, great restaurants, great food, and then that's another pro is the food, right? You can't go wrong with Filipino food, especially if this is something I've grown up on for a good chunk of my life. It's good to come back to the food, to the cuisine, to the culture. So yeah, there's a lot to do here. Whatever you're trying to do here, go shopping, nightlife, lock in, focus, make connections, meet new people, new friends, etc. There's so much to do here, guys. So I urge you to come here and check it out for yourself, right? Only so much I can talk about. I'd say the next con is the crime. Right? I haven't had any experience with it so far, but from what I've heard, if you go to again, it's all gonna be dependent on the areas that you go to. There's nuance to this. So if you're gonna go to the wrong area and you act up, then of course you're gonna be more susceptible to crime, right? But I haven't had any experience about this, but there is a history of crime, and it's something that shouldn't be ignored, especially in the Philippines, right? And that's just what comes with it, right? It's just what comes with the poverty and other different things, right? So crime is something that you do have to be mindful of. Always be aware of your surroundings, and you should be fine most of the time. But that's another con. If safety is a big priority of you, make sure you're going to the right areas, especially, as I said, those big 3. And then obviously you'll be fine, but just be very mindful regardless. I'm always trying to be mindful when I'm out and about. So that's another con, is the crime. And I'd say one more con, and then I can bring up another pro. One more con is the Wi-Fi. Now, I know they're making developments, they're making advancements on this, which is good, but I heard from a friend recently, he went to Cebu City, and he's heard stories of people going to places like more of the island type places, right? It's pretty hard to work there, so which is why I recommend you probably should just see it for yourself, but most of the time you should just be there for like leisure or a getaway for a weekend or 2. But the Wi-Fi isn't the greatest here. Even in the city, I've had my fair share of trouble with Wi-Fi, with connection. That's why I got a new one recently. But man, like I've got podcast episodes. I've hopped on a couple podcast episodes. I've hopped on Zoom meetings, even team calls with the students inside the program. There's always this running inside joke about me having Philippine Wi-Fi, and it's pretty funny because it's not the greatest, that's for sure. And we try and work around it. But Wi-Fi is not as good as compared to other places. So if that's a deal breaker for you, look to invest in like high quality Wi-Fi, or just move more towards the city as opposed to island life, right? Because it's not as developed. It's only worse in the islands, in the more like rural areas compared to the more developed, more advanced areas, right? I'm sure in the big 3 there should be no problems, but if that's a deal breaker for you, then really consider that. Okay, so I say the last pro. And I guess it's gonna be more for I've got one more pro, and I got one more con. One more pro is people are very good at, there's a lot of ways to make connections here, right? As I said, the people are very accommodating. There's a lot of opportunity here. And even if in my eyes it's still kind of untapped, but there's a lot of opportunities here. There is a reason why, a lot of there's a reason why people hire VAs from here, right? It's because their English is very good. The education about English is very good. Obviously, not everyone's going to be perfectly fluent, but they have a good grasp of English. So communication, getting around is very easy. Okay, so let me just readjust this. Yeah, a lot of people know English here. I haven't really had to use much Tagalog, although I try and practice because that's something I'm trying to get better at, especially if that's my country, that's my language, my mother tongue. But English is something that's been getting me around a lot, okay? People will understand for the most part, people will speak it for the most part, they know how to write it, to read it. It's not like Thai where it's written in their own language, it's all in English, okay? So that's that. And then the last thing, the last con, which I kind of forgot now, it slipped off my mind. Time zones. The last con is time zones. That's it. Time zones. So it is a pain in the ass sometimes. I think I'm 12 to 14 hours ahead of the US, and then the UK. I'm like, I think 7 hours, 8 hours, something like that. So it can be a pain in the ass, especially if you're in remote closing. With appointment setting, less so, unless you're doing cold calls and they expect you to dial up at certain times. I'm just checking my watch because I have a one-on-one call with a client in 5 minutes. But yeah, time zones can be pretty annoying. So, and that's just what you have to deal with when you move out here in Southeast Asia. So time zones, pretty annoying. If you're in remote sales, you have to find yourself either working extremely early in the early hours of the morning, because it's just going to line up better with the US and the UK clients or whoever you're dealing with over there, the markets, or you're going to have to be staying up extremely late. So, when I was on a trial session with, I was closing for a brief period while I was here, and I had to take sales calls from 10 to 4 a.m. And on that day, and I remember it vividly, on that day when I was going from 10 to 4 a.m., I had like 4 or 5 calls scheduled. Only 2 of them showed up, and there was a massive gap in between each sales call. So what would happen was, first call is at 10, I'd wait for them to show up. Nothing. So obviously, no one wants to get a no-show. And then, since like each call was spread apart so far, I'd have to wait like an hour and a half before the next one. Luckily, they showed up, and then I'd take that one, and then after that, be like another hour and a half. They didn't show up, and then they didn't show up. So for the majority of the time, from 10 p.m. that one night, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., only 2 people showed up. So I had to find something to do in between that time. But it was kind of wasted, to be honest. So that's just something you got to be wary of. It's just the time zones. Yes, you can make it work. I've made it work so far. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. But yeah, it's something that you have to be very mindful of, is the time zone. Just communicate a lot with, if you're appointment setting, if you're remote closing, just communicate with your business owner, your offer owner about this. And then I'm sure they can make some adjustments. But if that's a deal breaker for you, then maybe it's not the right thing to do for you. Maybe it's not the right thing to come over here, okay? If that's gonna be a deal breaker for you. If you run your own business, that's a different story. You work under your own hours, you decide, you call the shots. But appointment setting, high ticket sales, it's much different. So I hope this has been very valuable. I hope this has been very informative. It's a bit more of a different video because you guys have been asking for it. You guys have been asking, okay, like, oh, you're in Philippines right now. Oh, you're in Thailand. What's it like? What is there to do? How have you adjusted so far? So I'm here to answer the questions. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I highly urge you to check it out for yourself. Even if it's just a couple weeks, there's more than enough things to do here. It's gonna complete whatever purpose you have before you come here. And yeah, I've had a great time so far. Despite the pros, despite the cons, the pros have outweighed it by far. And the best thing as well, because I have Filipino heritage, and anyone who has this who doesn't know it yet, because I didn't know it yet, if you have Filipino heritage, you get something called the Balikbayan stamp, which basically grants you 1 year visa-free access in the UK. Not in the UK, in the Philippines. And best part is, if you decide to leave and you come back, that stamp renews. So you get another 1 year added on. And then if you ever, let's say you stay the whole year and you need to extend, guess how long that extension is? Another 6 months. So for my kuyas, my ates, and my titos, my titas, you know what I mean, right? The people who have Filipino heritage who maybe they want to come back, visit the motherland, you guys get 1 year access. So that's pretty good too. Buys you a lot of time, saves you a lot of pressure, and saves you a lot of money too. So hope this video was valuable. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'll be sharing more personal videos like this, maybe a day in a life, maybe a vlog, who knows. But yeah, that's that, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.